This session is Understanding Indigenous Service Canada's Community Opportunity Readiness Program and the process. My name is Paul Macedo, Communications Director with CAN-DO. So if you've attended at least one Zoom session in your life, you probably know that to turn off your microphones unless you're speaking. That way there's reduced noise in the background. So please mute your microphones if you haven't done so already. Also, these sessions are all being recorded and will be available through the Ts'uubaa app for up to 6 months after the event. So you can always go back and review. Also, you can check out some of the sessions that are happening concurrently to this one, because there's a lot of useful information, not just in this session, but other sessions, or so I'm told. I'll have to take that on advisement. Also, please, if you have any questions, just direct them through the chat. There will be opportunities throughout the session for Q&A, but if you think of something, put it in the chat and we'll make sure we'll have one of our presenters address the questions you might have. Okay. So again, my name is Paul Macedo, Communications Director with CAN-DO. I'm based in Edmonton, Treaty 6 territory. I'm at home, but that's where the CAN-DO office is. We're proud to be a partner in presenting BC Links to Learning for the 8th year, first time virtual. It's always a first time for everything. And we hope that the learning and the sharing and the networking will be as plentiful and as robust as it is in person. If not, we're really sorry, but this is the best alternative until we can meet again in person. So today with us, this session is presenting Indigenous Service Canada's, oh my gosh, just lost my Opportunity Readiness Program, Community Opportunity Readiness Program. And joining us today will be Don Potter and Aaron Hamilton. Don, you're up next.
Thank you, Paul. So my name is Don Potter. I'm an Economic Development Officer with Indigenous Services Canada. I've been an Economic Development Officer for the last 4 years. I've been with Indigenous Services Canada for about 17 years now. And I'm speaking to you from Port Moody, which is in the unceded territory of Coquitlam, Musqueam, Squamish, Stolo, and Ts'uubaa-asatx First Nations. So what I have today is I have a short presentation with some ISC information about the Community Opportunity Readiness Program. After that presentation, we can do a short period of time for questions. And then Aaron Hamilton from Ts'uubaa-asatx has a presentation on his experiences with Indigenous Services Canada's Community Opportunity Readiness Program. So again, just a short presentation, then time for questions, then Aaron, and then time for questions as well. That's the agenda. So what is the Community Opportunity Readiness Program? The Community Opportunity Readiness Program provides project-based funding to support First Nation and Inuit communities in the pursuit of the participation in economic opportunities. CORP supports opportunities with the potential of generating incremental community economic benefits, which includes employment, business revenues, and leasing revenues. So here's some eligible activities we have with the Community Opportunity Readiness Program. And within the Community Opportunity Readiness Program, there is two kind of streams. We have the regional process, which is for projects that are under $250,000. And we have the national process, which is for projects over $250,000. And generally speaking, the regional process is for projects that are for the planning stages and the development stage. And the national process, which is also called CORP, is for projects that are in the acquisition or construction stage. So for the regional process in the notes here, community-owned businesses, feasibility studies, business plans, and other related planning documents leading to the establishment, acquisition, or expansion of a community-owned business. Or for community economic infrastructure, which is the planning and design for community economic infrastructure that supports multiple business opportunities. And these can be for multiple years, these projects. And the national process, so then going back to that community-owned business, is we call it equity gap. And then that is support for an establishment, acquisition, or expansion of community-owned businesses. And there's also, for the national program, capital costs for economic infrastructure. So that will be site servicing, site development. Examples of those are roads, sewers, water connection, those sorts of economic infrastructure works. So typically what happens is when we have a project, we may see a project from beginning to end, and it goes from the regional program to the national program. So for economic infrastructure projects, First Nations may use the CORP regional program for feasibility and design work with the intent of receiving CORP national funding. And for equity gap projects, First Nations may use either the CORP regional program or an Aboriginal Financial Institute, AFI, for the feasibility and development costs with the intent of receiving CORP national funding. And here's a couple of things to note when you're working towards the national program. We're going to talk about this a little bit later, but for the national program, all shovel-ready requirements have to be met. And all funding approved under the regional program is included as part of the maximum CORP. So with, or the funding limit. So with economic infrastructure, that limit is $3 million. And for equity gap, that limit is $1 million. So if you have some money through the regional program, that goes against those funding limits. And then the national program projects are submitted by all regions and selected for possible approval based on eligibility readiness. So that's just talking about the kind of the competition that we have for the national program. So here again is that opportunity, this is that shovel-ready checklist. So this is just for the economic infrastructure project. And this is not an exhaustive list. This is just the main points of things that we're looking for. Obviously, it's that sources of funding, confirmation of the sources of funding, whether or not there was a feasibility study for the project, proof of land tenure, very important, proof of land designation or land zoning, depending on if the project is on or off reserve, environmental impact assessments, completed ISC environmental screening decision, anchor tenants. So anchor tenants, when we're speaking of those, we're talking about economic infrastructure. When we have multiple businesses, we want to make sure that there is an anchor tenant. One business that there already is an agreement in place. Copies of required regulatory approvals, copies of service agreements, and that can be water agreements, that sort of thing. Construction permits, tendering package in place, including staff engineering issued for construction drawings, Class A and B cost estimates, and construction schedule. One thing that I typically say is, if we have a project and we're looking for like what makes a shovel-ready project or make a project shovel-ready, is if we had approval today, could we go to tender next week? Do we have everything in place that we're not now going to back to doing some development work? We actually have that all in place and we can go to tender next week. So this is the shovel-ready checklist for the acquisition for the equity gap projects. Confirmation of all other sources of project funding, including a commercial loan for a minimum of 40% of project financing. So that is actually a requirement that there needs to be that commercial loan from a bank for a minimum of the 40%. If it's a limited partnership, that partnership has to have an ownership of 51% from the nation. Completed business, certified business valuations for acquisitions and financial statements for the last 3 years for expansions. Feasibility and business plans and market and sensitivity analysis. And that was just, again, for those equity gap acquisition or startup projects. So this was our schedule this year. It's a little different this year. We actually only sent our call for applications for the regional program in January, but we gave a little bit of time there. We had the due dates in March. And then that screening for those projects has actually already been completed. If additional CORP project or budgets become available, remaining projects that we have in that list, we will go down to the next one for consideration for funding. And for the national program, a call of applications was sent out November 9th with a due date for December 4th, and that has been fully allocated at this point. Again, like I was saying before, CORP is a competitive program. So the first bullet there talks about the regional program. For this year, we received 42 applications requesting 4.8 million against our 2.1. And this was actually a slower year. Typically, we're receiving 60 plus projects. I think that a lot of nations weren't really ready for project-based funding with economic development this year. For the national program, we had 24 applications nationally that were considered shovel ready, requesting over 30 million against a 22. That's a little bit skewed as well because that already passed the shovel ready requirement. So there was actually many, many more projects that came in, and some were screened out as being not shovel ready. So again, as I was speaking before, you can also go to AFIs for specific business projects. And this is just the definition of the AFI definition from the NACA website is AFIs provide development lending, business, financial, and support services to First Nation, Métis, and Inuit businesses in all provinces and territories. Support includes business loans, non-repayable contributions, financial and management consulting, and business startup and aftercare services. AFIs are a great resource. They are the four main AFIs in BC, including Talahout Aboriginal Capital Corporation, All Nations Trust Company, Nuu-Chah-Nulth, and Tri-Corp. And then I just put the home base there. The borders are a little bit loose. So if you already know who your AFI is, obviously that's the AFI that you deal with. If you don't know, just go with your best guesses to that home base. And if that's not the AFI that you will deal with, then they will let you know who the one is. So for ISC's economic development, here's our contacts. The Director of Lands and Economic Development is David Russell. Julia, who is on the call here, is the acting manager. And then we have the 3 economic development officers, including myself. I work with the South Coast and North Coast. We have Vanessa, who works with Thompson, Okanagan, Mainland, and Southwest regions. And we have Josh there, who's in outer space, working in the Caribou, Kootenay, Northwest, East, and the Chaco regions. Obviously, if you have any information or you want any more information, you can contact any one of us. But there's also a general contact email at the bottom there. I would just let people have a chance to record that if they want to. It's a bit of a mouthful or a handful there. If not, I do believe that this presentation is also going to be on the website for L2L. Is there any questions? And I was thinking just a short question period for this, and then we'll let Aaron do his presentation, and we'll have his questions and general questions as well after that. I'm just going to look in the chat here, see if there were any. All right, it doesn't look like there's a lot of questions at this point, and that's fine. I will turn the presentation over to Aaron.
Thank you, Don. Greetings, everybody. My name is Aaron Hamilton. I'm from Hupetchesett First Nation in Port Alberni. But I'm the operations manager for Ts'uubaa-asatx out in Lake Cowichan territory. I've spent the last 20 years of my professional life working with First Nations and management, and have spent the last 11 years with Ts'uubaa-asatx. So I'm going to share my screen here and go over a presentation that I did for our marina project that we did through the CORP program. So it's titled The Creation of Catsa Marina. So we engaged our community going way back to 2011 to sort of undertake this big development. And I'll speak to some of the other development that we have going on too as we go through this, but it'll all crystallize as this marina becomes a major focal point. So the steps taken were community engagement, which was critical, planning, which incorporated comprehensive community development planning, habitat assessment planning, and as well as a marina feasibility. And we did 2 of those. One was more of a commercialized enterprise, and the other one was more refined. Financial analysis, master planning for the whole area, sourcing out funds, as Don just highlighted with some of the AFIs, et cetera, construction, and then marketing and lease registrations. And I'll speak a little bit more on that side because that's how we're funding it, as well as expansion, which we've already talked about, tripling the size. So the first with any major project, the critical component that you need to do is community engagement. So it originated in 2011, and we began our comprehensive community development plan process. It spanned over a year and a half, and it involved very many sort of desktop exercises like this with a lot of blown up maps and just really engaging all ages of our community. This one was more youth centric, but it incorporated our elders, our staff, and like I said, our youth as well. We also did brainstorming sessions on site. So what we did is we brought leadership and we brought others right down to the waterfront area, which was somewhat barren land at the time and very treed with maple and alder trees, and it was very hard to visualize, but it actually got people to discuss sort of what was going to happen down there. Additionally, we also do an update sort of every year, and we're actually getting ready to do a 5-year multi-year planning cycle right now, but we check in with our community at least every year on this specific project. That's on top of the monthly newsletters, the quarterly reports, et cetera. And then the other thing that we did is we also looked at our regional stakeholders. So the neighboring jurisdiction, the town of Lake Cowichan, the regional district, Cowichan Valley Regional District, our neighbors, so on either side of us that are non-First Nation neighbors, as well as Mosaic, which is made up of Island Timberlands and Timber West, as they own the lake bottom. With three of those, besides our neighbors, we already had pre-existing mutual benefit agreements and relationship documents with each one. So it became very easy to start discussing what we wanted to do. So here's a good visual on the top there. You can see sort of how treed the area was. That was after we cut away a lot of the blackberries and that, and it sort of started opening it up. And when you get to the end, you'll be probably pretty shocked what it looks like now. But the comprehensive community development planning was critical to really engage our community and identify what it is that they want to do on their lands. We did it very much community driven, and then we ran with it. So it wasn't what Aaron wanted to do on the lands or any of our developers. It was what does the community want? And as I mentioned, that took about two years. It laid out the areas of development that we were able to, the go and no-go zones is what I call it. So it really crystallized sort of where the development areas would be. And it involved extensive community consultation, as I mentioned before, even bringing them out on site and being engaged all the way through. We also did land use planning, which incorporated our traditional use study, which I didn't have on here, which wasn't too robust in the area. We also did a habitat assessment to see what kind of aquatic and animal species that were around. And then encompassing all this was sort of concurrently happening was our land code vote, and we became a land code operational nation in 2017, which sort of crystallized and encompassed all this stuff into one overarching document. And then, as I mentioned before, we had our initial study for marina feasibility in 2017. We updated that to become more of a domestic as opposed to commercial marina enterprise. The other thing that we did, which was critical for us to move forward, was a financial analysis. So we did a pro forma financial review with our economist that we brought on staff or brought on as a consultant. And his numbers helped determine whether it would be feasible And this is where I said it was initially for a commercial marina, but we didn't, the biggest challenge we had is we didn't have turning radiuses to allow for a boat launch on site. So as we were doing the feasibility study, we started figuring out that we had to detract from that and sort of massage it enough to still be allowed to have a marina, but we couldn't do it as planned because of the turning radiuses. So we built it into our residential development. And as you can see here, there's a snippet from our community development plan that sort of has where this was in the timeline. And I was actually quite shocked. Sometimes I get too caught up on things, but it actually fit in really nicely that we're ahead of the schedule there. Here's some visuals of some of how it tied into all the master planning. So when I say master plan, we had a whole waterfront development plan on how we're going to incorporate everything, and it actually became it's been very exhaustive and actually very crazily busy down there. It's been a pretty big hub for the area. So tying into the CCDP, the major development zone is that first graphic you see there. We sort of color coded it and figured out what areas were developable, what do we want to put there, and then that was all vetted through the community, so we got full support on that. And I would say I don't know if you can see my cursor, but basically that everything that's colored has all been developed now in the last 3 years. That CCDP also laid out critical timelines and helped keep my feet to the floor to make sure that we're aggressively going after funding. We're looking at partners. We're getting the right people on staff, finding the right consultants, and vetting out those are be good and not good for the nation. We also referenced other regional plans. So this is where the critical partnerships with the town and the regional district, looking at their OCPs, making sure that we can dovetail into other projects that they have, and looking at concurring interests. So one of the things that we did, and we've actually been successful with 2 CORP national programs. We actually ran the water and sewer services about 1.8 kilometers from one edge of the reserve to the other 5 years ago in preparation for this type of development that's happening now. Then we also looked at communal use. So one of the critical things at our waterfront, and you'll see when doing this marina, and I know every nation feels this way with economic development, is to ensure that our nation always has their community, has their ongoing interest at heart. So, we're not taking over the whole community and the whole reserve base to sort of make economic development as number one priority. It is the number one priority, but it's also allowing that mixed development to occur. And we've still been able to retain portions of it to ensure that we have long-term access specifically for our nation and for our members. It also allows for complementary use though, so that we have a communal beach down there where we're going to ensure there's separation, but it's going to be so subtle that you wouldn't even know it. And we sort of want to harmonize and have everyone enjoying the land base that's down there. And we also looked at inclusion of waterfront residential development. So this is where it's become critical. It has become critical, and it's the major economic driver. So that's North Shore Estates. We've just recently sold 25 lots in a subdivision that's right next door to our minor lots. We had 4 lots down there. We've done 25, and now we're looking at doing another 60 and then another 60 following that. So it's actually getting pretty crazy with the housing market that we're able to capture this kind of market. Some of the pictures on here, we did a waterfront walkway. That's what you see on that middle picture. That walkway was built for safety reasons and spans the whole 1.8 kilometer stretch, and now is becoming a sort of catalyst for the municipality to continue that on for another 3 kilometers, and then tie into a new they're doing a new what do you call it there? A new weir and dam structure that they're going to continue on that walkway all the way across and connect the whole north shore of the lake. So this was done about 2.5 years ago, and just sort of, we're trying to pave the way to start showing what a new community can look like, and make sure we have all the building blocks in there. On below, we've actually started doing some installments of our First Nations art, and sort of putting our stamp on things at our waterfront, and then educating people as well on who we are, our hereditary based leadership structure, how we've originated, where we've come, and where we want to go. So we've always kept that close to heart, and we have a mini longhouse on the bottom right as well. Those are all functions that are built into this waterfront development that will stay intact. So sourcing out funds, one of the critical things that we've done over the years is, for the first probably 8 years, 7-8 years, we ran a very tight ship with the nation, and it was very hard. A lot of our nations, like I said, doing this for over 20 years, there's always a need, but we had to really hunker down and save up money, because we knew that we wanted to invest into our development. It's not a big, large amount, but it was enough where when you need to contribute to projects, it actually carried a lot of weight. We also found a partner with another local developer in town that was doing about 38 tiny homes, and he needed the marina space. So we were able to receive a letter of agreement from him that he would purchase the additional slips. We looked at our AFIs, so I've reached out to Talahout and NEDC, and we've got some minor funds that are going to enhance the marina, and we're moving our Catsa Adventures as a kayak, stand-up paddleboard, and canoe rental business. We're moving that onto the marina, so we'll already have our first sort of tenant on their marina as well. And then with CORP, so talked to our economic development officer. I've been in talks with Don for over the last 2 years. We worked together with ISC and our engineers and our team to really hunker down to figure out that we had the shovel-ready criteria that was required. It was a lot of work. I'm not going to pretend that it wasn't. It was a lot of, we had to ensure that we had the tenure in place from the province under the Water Sustainability Act. We had to get Mosaic on board to agree that they'd allow us to put this permanent structure on their lake bottom. We had to engage the local municipality, engage our residents, but we did it all, and we submitted the application and got approved. We went with a local company, Jornik Marine, based out of Lake Cowichan, has done a lot of work over the coast, and we confirmed the design. And the build started off site, but it was just up the lake from us. And the first picture, you can see some of the fingers and some of the moorage that was getting built off site, and then they throw it in the water, and then they towed it down. The other picture here can show sort of the rectangular shape of it in the water. And then the middle one has the gangway leading down. And then there's the paddle driver on the bottom left. And then on the bottom right is sort of the complete project right now. So the other thing that was critical to this was the hydrology testing to make sure that it could withstand, and we're very thankful we're on a lake. We do get winds every day, but we're not on the open coast. But it was still critical to do hydrology to make sure that it remains stable. So here's a rendering. So marketing and lease registrations. This is identification of potential purchasers. So North Shore Estates Phase 1 and 2. That is all this stuff up above here on the first visual. So you can see the marina planned into the master plan. There is another little viewing platform that's off to the right. That marina is going to join that in the future. And our future developments sort of span in the back here. I mentioned that earlier, we did 25 lots, and then we're looking at another 100 plus lots over the next 2 to 3 years. And as I said earlier, change in scope due to site challenges. So now it's predominantly an anchor for our residential development. It wasn't initially going to be that, but that's sort of the way it shifted with those turning radiuses. We just didn't have the boat launching capabilities. Excuse me. And then expansion. So a further 28 berths as per our CORP application. We said we were going to do 56. We have 28 there now. There was a delay, shockingly, due to COVID. Some of our material, this board here, it's a type of material that comes from China. We've been on delay for 6 months, I guess. But we're on track now that this will be complete this summer, and we'll have the additional 28. We'll still meet the timelines of our overall proposal. And then we'll also be doing an additional 28 bursts based upon the uptick from our further phases in North Shore Estates. And as I highlighted just earlier, the connectivity to the waterfront walkway will see another probably 28 move down. And this allows for cohesive completion and connection to other community infrastructure. And that's all. Any questions? And I'll try and get back here to quit sharing my screen. Just while I'm waiting for questions, I just want to, one of the key things was having ISC support all the way through. I know it can be a challenge working with government, and I know there's, a lot of our nations sometimes have a challenge doing that, but really, really, really good people I've worked with in ISC all the way through economic development, any program really, and just really, if you can have all your planning done beforehand, that's the critical component. If you have planning done and your community has spoken, try your hardest not to let politics get involved, but just keep going with the plan, because it's such a cool feeling to see our youth. Even right now, I get to see our youth that get to be part of that plan, and their eyes get big when they can see it become complete. It's actually coming true. I didn't say this at the beginning. Our nation is only 28 members total on and off reserve. And I highlight that because we had a lot of challenges when I first started here, that your number of people somehow dictated what you can get done. We've had fun over this last 12 years, really had fun flipping that on its side and saying we can do it regardless of size. It doesn't matter. It's all about the vision that you have, and our late hereditary chief is probably smiling down. So thank you. Oh, I see one down there.
Hi, Aaron.
Yes.
Hi, Aaron. It's Gail Joe calling. It's Gail Joe here.
Well, hey, Gail, how are you doing?
Good. How are you? Not really a question. I just wanted to comment how wonderful it is to hear an update of what you've done and your team have done. And I actually wanted to make that comment of how small the band is. So when you consider it as a pro rata basis compared to other bands, you guys have done amazing stuff. And hats off to you, Aaron, and your hard work and the team that you have there. Just loved your presentation because of the new pictures that I was able to see, because I think I visited you probably 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's been too long. We need to.
Yeah, very long. But just the photos that you've done, the development is just, I see it as just very complimentary to the municipality that is just right adjacent to you. So great work, Aaron.
Thank you. We'll connect offline, Gail.
Yeah, you bet.
So I'm just received Roy's question here regarding mutual benefit agreements. We had more of an agreement. We have with Mosaic. We're actually just getting ready to redraft one. It's as simple as picking up the phone, and then if you have someone good on your team that you trust with negotiations, it's not, in my view anyway, over the years, it's not too challenging really, as long as you know what you're trying to get at the end game. And regarding funding, can you stack your funding to lower your contribution amount? That's a Don or Vanessa question, or Josh.
Yeah, either one of us. I can try to answer it, and they can weigh in if they want. But yes, you can stack as long as that limited partnership. That's really the main thing about the advantages or the who owns the business at the end of the day. But if you're getting other contributions, yes, you can stack. And then that also increases the ranking of the project as well, if you are lowering your request in relation to the total project cost.
Yeah, just the contribution from the applicant, there is a minimum that CORP requires, but the rest of them, as Don said, if you have partners, it actually helps bump your project up a bit.
Any other questions? If not, I know in this day and age, it's all digital and online. Feel free to reach out if you look up. I know it's Ts'uubaa-asatx, but we're Lake Cowichan First Nation. That's what you can look up on Google. I am an open book. I want to see every nation succeed. I don't hold any secrets. There's no secret formula that we try and keep crafted in the back here. You know, the more nations that can start, you know, I made a comment the other day that me and my wife love to travel throughout BC, and I long for the time when we can drive through. You know, I used to comment that nations used to get the how do I word this play, sort of the crappy lands near road, near all this industrial area. Well, it's nice to see that we can start finally maximizing these lands, and now it's come full circle. Our lands now are one of the more higher sought after lands that, you know, when I first started here 12 years ago, we're sort of, wow, how are you going to get services out there? And once you do all that, it starts really crystallizing. So I'm super happy to see nations on the island, nations that become land code operational and start getting some of that jurisdiction in their own nations and can make their own decisions and still be accountable to the law and to other standards, but can make their own decisions. It's been fantastic to watch, and really trying to build a networking, you know, hopefully once this pandemic's over, really try and network with other nations and help. That's the biggest thing. We want to help everybody. So thank you everybody that came out to attend virtually. I really appreciate it. And like I said, if the call is there, I always try and return a call within a day, and I'm more than willing to help anywhere I can.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Aaron. That was a great presentation. Great to see what the nation's doing or has done.
Thank you, everyone.
So if there's no more questions, I guess we're going to end day one right here. That was very inspirational, Aaron. That's, you know, it's what we do is can do is we look at positive stories happening across the country, and we try to share that and kind of inspire. It's not a cookie cutter approach, but the inspiration is there, and I'm inspired by what you've accomplished, what you're accomplishing there, and I think that a number of other communities across the country, you know, could be inspired as well. It's phenomenal. Like the 28, the 28 member base is pretty significant because there's so many communities with hundreds of members saying that they don't have enough people to realize some of the dreams and some of their infrastructure goals. And certainly, you know, your community with 28 off and on reserve can certainly point the way forward. That's not always the case. That number isn't the critical factor. There's other critical factors. So I will stop rambling. There's some kudos in the chat for you, Aaron, as well. I thank you, Don, for your presentation, Aaron, again, and all of you for taking the time to join us this afternoon. Please remember that we have another full day of sessions, hopefully, that will inspire you as much as Aaron's did for me on a personal level. So thank you all for joining us. We'll see you again tomorrow, hopefully, and take care. Have a great afternoon.